Today, I begin by acknowledging the contribution of our forefathers who have helped in creating a world based on freedom and human dignity. I extend my respect to people of diverse cultures, faith, colors, and genders, and pledge to work for equity, inclusivity, peace, and harmony. A very good afternoon to one and all present here. I, Christina, first year student of DME Media School, welcome you all to the fifth edition of the world's first 7-day hybrid international media conference ICAN5. The International Media Conference ICAN5 is being organized by DME Media School of Delhi Metropolitan Education in collaboration with the School of Communication and Creative Arts, Deakin University, Melbourne, Australia. I would like to take a moment and introduce Delhi Metropolitan Education to our audience. Delhi Metropolitan Education is an A-grade premier educational institute affiliated to Guru Gobind Singh Indraprasth University, New Delhi, and approved by the Bar Council of India. The ME Media School is one of the most promising media institutes in the country. It offers BA in journalism and mass communication. It is recognized as a school focused on the growth of its faculty and students through academic and co-curricular activities. Major flagship events and initiatives of the schools include BG Verghese Lecture Series, Peer-to-Peer FTP, International Film Festival SIFI, International Conference ICAN, and Ritika, Convention of Media Students, and newly added to the list is VIS, Vibrant India Series. ICAN 5 has come with a theme of inclusivity, convergence, and alternative negotiations with the hashtag communication for all. ICAN 5 has the support of 18 partners, including the International Association of Media and Communication Research, IMCR, Gen Section, and GMEC, Global Media and Education Council as the conference partners. Knowledge partners for ICAN 5 are Makhanlal Chaturvedi University, Bhopal, Vigyan Prasar, Government of India, and Keshav Suri Foundation. For ICAN 5, international partners are Institute for International Journalism, Ohio University, USA, Green University, Bangladesh, and Daffodil International University, Bangladesh. Cultural partner is Beacon House National University, Pakistan. Our media partners are Amar Ujala, The Policy Times, Jai Hind Times, and The Hindi Post. ICAN 5 is powered by Asian Media and Cultural Studies Network, Australia, Australia-India Film Practitioners and Researchers Network, SPARK, the Student Council of DME Media School, and RIM, Research and Innovation in Media, Research Cell of DME. The conference is supported by NOTO, National Organ and Tissue Transplant Organization, Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, Government of India. Since 2018, DME Media School has been organizing the international conference ICAN. The themes for the former editions were India and Changing Aspects of News in ICAN 1, Indian Cinema and Alternate Networks in ICAN 2, Issues of Community, Agenda and News in ICAN 3 with a hashtag Conference for Change, Information, Communication and Artificial Networks in ICAN 4 with the hashtag Communication Redefined. ICAN 5 will witness a total of 26 sessions, including 18 live sessions, 5 hybrid sessions, and 3 physical sessions. The schedule comprises of 10 technical sessions, 3 workshops, 2 master classes, 2 plenary sessions, and 5 panel discussions. Proud to mention here that all technical sessions are being chaired by women scholars representing different states and countries. It gives me immense pleasure that ICAN 5 will go live on the official Facebook page of DME for various sessions. I now invite Professor Dr. Amrish Saxena, Dean DME Media School and convener of ICAN 5 to give his opening remarks.
Welcome everybody to this session of ICAN 5. Today we have entered in the 5th day of the 5th edition of ICAN, the journey that we started in 2018. Now in this, as Christina has already told everybody, we have different kind of sessions and all focusing on one central theme, that is inclusivity. The theme is inclusivity, convergence and alternative negotiations, and we have chosen different kind of topics as part of different sessions to talk about that one central theme. like we are talking about inclusivity in journalism, inclusivity in the PR industry, as only last evening we had that session which was brought to us by an American scholar, and then this evening also we are more or less talking about the same aspect, wherein the session is to be taken by again a scholar from Ohio University. So that is how we have designed everything in a manner wherein the inclusivity remains in the fore, and we talk about whether it's the various aspects of the industry, whether it's various social aspects, various gender related issues, women related issues, all that we are trying to discuss and deliberate in a manner wherein more insight can be developed among all those who are participating in these sessions. So, incidentally, Akshay Tyagi has been very instrumental in bringing all these sessions. Like day before yesterday, he and his team had a session in the online mode wherein we were discussing the issues related to LGBTQ, and the topic was understanding the rainbow. Now today he has come over here to talk about as to how the diversity and inclusion can be ensured in educational institutions, because we are an educational institution, and right from the teachers and the students, everybody has to be apprised of, everybody has to be made sensitive on such kind of issues, because we are living in a world wherein this is not the question of just one country. Internationally also we have entered into an era wherein there has to be more understanding of all kind of genders, with the basic concept that everybody is a human being, and whatever diversity exists on any basis, be it gender, be it race, be it color, on whatever ground, or be it even on the basis of nationality, but then ultimately everybody is a human being and everybody has a right to live with dignity. So, with this concept today we will be discussing such kind of issues wherein Akshay Tyagi is there. So, I welcome him, and Zayn Khan is also with us, who will also be telling about his experience and the kind of thought process which need to be inculcated among us all, because we all know a very little about LGBT community. Once we understand, once we try to appreciate, then only we can understand that we all are human beings and everybody deserves equal treatment. So, that is basically the focus of this session, and hand over to Christina.
Thank you, sir. I'm happy to show that Journalism at DME is the official newsletter of DME Media School. This fortnightly publication covers all the major activities happening in and out of the campus. It is a student-centric newsletter carried out entirely by them under the supervision of faculty members. DME TV is our official YouTube channel where you can find the playlist related to all session, lecture series, film festivals and conferences. Today, we have gathered here for the first plenary session, and the theme is Embracing Diversity and Inclusion in Educational Campuses. Before we proceed, I would like our participants to know more about the session's resource person. Akshay Tyagi is a diversity and inclusion expert and has been actively involved in advocacy work for the LGBTQ plus community. He has been working with NGOs at the grassroots level in India to help create an equal and equitable society. His research paper, investigating the impact of exclusion and discrimination on the health and rights of transgender persons in Delhi, has been funded by UNAIDS. He is also the Youth Task Force member at UNAIDS for Sustainable Development Goals 2030. He has been a panelist at the Future of Diversity, being LGBTQ plus in the New Normal event organized by Belgian Embassy in Manila. He has also spoken at several forums, including the Cure Awadh Literature Festival, Austrian Embassy's session on art and gender, and American Embassy's discussion on allyship. He has presented his recommendations and way forward to Niti Aayog and SDGs and LGBTQ plus community at the UN House, Delhi. Sir is also working with various colleges to create a roadmap for safe and inclusive campuses. We have also with us Zayn Khan, sir, is F&B Service Associate at the Lalit New Delhi. An out and proud trans man, sir was also one of the scholarship recipient at the Lalit Suri Hospitality School. We are honored to have you both with us today. I now request Professor Dr. Amrish Saxena to kindly take the session ahead.
Thank you, Christina. So, as I have already mentioned, the basic purpose of organizing this kind of session, and the experts, the resource persons have already been introduced. So, I would prefer that if Akshay takes it forward and start the session.
Great. Thank you, sir. And first of all, I would like to actually thank DME for taking this initiative, because especially in this country where we have started to talk about the transgender community openly in 2014, because it was then only when we recognized transgender as third gender. And recently in 2018, when we recognized same-sex partnerships and started to talk about the LGBTQI spectrum. So in just 4 years, if we happen to organize such a successful event and are talking about the diversity, especially when it comes to LGBTQI spectrum, and with the young force, I think this definitely deserves a huge round of applause. So thank you for making all such efforts to ensuring that there are safe spaces out there for kids who identify themselves as queer. To talk about diversity, equity and inclusion, it's a very simple exercise. Every day, most of you must be boarding metros. Most of you must be coming from different houses, right? And every single person you are meeting, they all have different physical appearance. They all have different sort of needs. They all have different sort of backgrounds. And this is what diversity is, right? But you just don't start to talk with everybody who you meet in this journey. And the very effort that you take to initiate that conversation with somebody makes you create that sort of belongingness with the other person, which actually brings in inclusion, because you become accepting of that person. And when it comes to level of understanding, the more we will get to understand the person who we are meeting in our daily lives, we'll understand more about the background, we will understand more about the kind of deficit which is there in their lives, or the things that are missing, so that you can bridge that gap or fill in that gap. And this brings in equity. It's as simple as that. Especially when it comes to gender, I personally feel that it is not because of us, but certainly I give it back to the education system only, that we haven't actually talked much about the sex, gender and sexuality much, though it is very much there in our textbooks. If you go back, I'm sure most of you would find that in the CBSE chapter 8, which was reproduction. But unfortunate that most of our teachers did not discuss that chapter at all, and they skipped because of assuming that kids might get distracted or something. And just imagine, just because of that assumption of having kids distracted, actually is impacting so many of lives. It is actually it actually will make more sense when you will hear the stories of people who identify themselves as queer, because only then you will get to understand how difficult it is to not live their authentic self. Just imagine, for a day, if you are asked to behave a certain way or act a certain way which you are not, how difficult it is. So because we are certainly not actors, right, who can pretend to be something for the entire day or for the entire life. And just by not living your authentic self, how difficult it is for you, because you'll always have to carry that baggage of not being you or not being your authentic self to anywhere you go. It becomes difficult because there are certain levels, because first we don't recognize the community, right, because it is so difficult. And just imagine, like, just by looking at somebody's face, especially in transgender persons, whilst it is very much visible that okay, this is a trans person because of their looks, but certainly when it comes to the lesbian, gay, bisexual community, you will not be able to identify them by just looking at their faces. So it gets difficult. So we just don't recognize community, and of course when there is no recognition, there is less of understanding about the community, right? Because of course people who are more visible, you will be able to make an effort to understand them only then better. Then comes your acceptance. You haven't recognized, you are not making efforts to understand, then where will the acceptance come from, and how will you know who will you have to accept, right? Because whilst it is a constant dialogue that there is more of inclusion, but there is no understanding only who is to be included, and that again creates a long gap. And then we certainly, if haven't recognized only, we certainly don't know what to act on. We certainly don't know what as an ally to the community or what as part of the whole society we actually have to do. I'll tell you a brief story about my own self. I was at Jamia and this topic of LGBTQ spectrum came out of box. Like we had to work on photo book. It was in 2017 and I had not even a single person who was openly out to actually get them featured in my textbook, in that photo book. It was a struggle and I had gone to every place wherever I had learned that okay, I'll be able to find these people. But just because I have no understanding about how to recognize people, and I had no idea, like you have to just go and ask, like it's so stupid of me to go and ask are you lesbian or are you gay just by looking at their faces, right? Why is there have been lot of people out there, but I personally had no guts to ask somebody. And then eventually for 2-3 times I had come back to college and I was like I did not find a story only. And it again was something because the community is out there. It was just that we were not sufficient or we were not actually having sort of resources, because there is no professor, there is not even a single student who openly can talk about the word sex, gender and sexuality. Then I again come from Jamia Millia Islamia, wherein I had personally faced number of instances where I used to present and students used to walk out because they feel like this is something which is not natural. Interesting enough that most of the students who used to walk out of those presentations are the same people who come back to me now asking that we are working for this channel and we want somebody trans to be part of our this TVC or this show. And this is how the world has changed in last 4 years. So we recognized same-sex partnerships in 2018. Eventually I was able to finish my book. I actually got into NGOs. Sad enough that in this country where of course this was recognized in 2018 only, the most of the organizations when it comes to the non-profit organizations or community-based organizations, most of them working with the LGBTQI plus community are the ones who are working on HIV AIDS. So it is again a question that the community has been stereotyped or labeled as somebody who is at a high risk of actually causing AIDS or HIV to people. So again putting them under a banner which is again a vulnerable section of the community is again became a more of taboo for other people to get included or to make them part of the society. So all of these connotations which have wantingly unwantingly been surrounded around the community have become one of the reasons for most of the people to maintain some distance, and those distances have only widened over the years. Fortunately in 2018 after Supreme Court decriminalized section 377, I'm sure most of you had noticed that corporate organizations had eventually changed their logos to rainbow colors and all of that had happened. But just by changing your logo will not change the mindsets, will not change your customer base, and while it takes a lot of guts to change even that to rainbow, because you are now creating that sort of a value wherein people can easily identify that okay, you also support this, but there is much more which organizations need to do to ensure that people who you are now banking upon as part of your customer database, they should also be recognized in your brand. And I think it is still in process, because when we started, so at the Lalit Suri Hospitality Group where I had diversity, equity and inclusion, even when the Supreme Court had it criminalized, we launched same-sex partnerships insurance, we launched gender affirmation surgery insurance, when nobody was even talking about it, because for me it would be very stupid as an organization to invite people to work with me without having their medical benefits in place. Just imagine how will a transgender person come to workplace if their part of medical needs is not insured only as part of the Mediclaim insurance. Just imagine I invite a person who is into same-sex partnerships to work with me, but I don't recognize their partnerships only. When you are easily having Mediclaim insurance for your spouses, for your family, I don't recognize or value somebody's relationship only, how difficult it is for them to join a company like this. So we got everything in place, and of course there is a lot of effort because you need to sensitize not just the person who are the managers but people down the line, and especially with respect to the spectrum, the sex, gender and sexual orientations. Even the security guard, who is the very first person anybody is meeting when they are entering the organization, has to be sensitized enough, because if they will only misgender or tell somebody to add to the worst experience of somebody, because I'm sure in last 6-7 years of my direct connection with the community and been working with them, There have been number of instances when trans people have been thrown out of the places or have not been allowed only to enter, including educational institutions, because people in their isolation or their own assumption think that this is not a place for them. And I'm sure, how many of you had actually seen teachers or students out trans in campuses? Just imagine. And if you go back to even 2011 data of census that reads there are only 4,50,000 transgender persons in this country, wherein the number is a lot higher in Delhi itself, right? Because if you look at the data of NECO, wherein they talk about HIV prevention or men who have sex with men, the data in Delhi itself is much more than that. And in a recent report in United States, you must have read that there is 33% of their population who is now identifying themselves as the queer population. So when a country like US has that much of representation, because they have openly started to talk about it, just imagine if we will have the freedom to choose who we are, the number would go extremely high even in this country. And the reason why we are still just talking and conversating a lot about the community is because we haven't yet actually created that safe of an environment for the community to believe in their authentic selves, right? Because we ourselves have no idea what role we as an individuals have to play. We are quite struggling with the fact that, okay, even if this person come out, how will the other people react to it? Is my organization prepared? Is my institution prepared? What sort of textbooks are there to ensure that they feel represented? What sort of population is the campus is having gender neutral washrooms for them or not? Because to start with, they are actually the basic facilities. If they are not in place, then they are the ones who get molested, they are the ones who get discriminated, they are the ones who have been thrown out and have done so much. In fact, if most of you must have logged in our session understanding the rainbow, 2 out of 3 of the panelists mentioned that they had actually moved out of their schools because of gender neutral washrooms. There were no washrooms for them, and also because the uniform codes, that of course this is a college, you are all free to wear whatever you wish to, but in schools that there is no such policy. And for somebody who identify themselves as trans men, for them to actually go to a school in a salwar suit, it's difficult, because you just don't bring your authentic self and it gets really tough. So I think a lot of it is still to be reviewed, is still to be discussed, so that everybody feels represented out there. And I think that is very much important. It is so much important for us to recognize to begin with, because the moment you will yourself be a safe space for somebody who is from the LGBTQI spectrum, will eventually change the game. Because if you talk about the LGBTQI spectrum, that will actually change nothing, because the only reason why they are LGBTQI plus represented comes into that category is because of their attraction or sexual behavior towards somebody, right? But does that have anything to do with my education, with my workplace, with my atmosphere, with my this production? Nothing. And what one person is doing inside a bedroom is totally onto them. So why are we continuously questioning, labeling and putting people into boxes to actually make them do what we wish to them? And just imagine if for a day we are asked to live our life on somebody else's rule, how difficult it would get. And it's same way for the LGBTQI spectrum as well, because there is no recognition, and we are certainly like just started. Like I again give it to DME, because in last 1 year, this is my 4th session with you, and with the students as well we have discussed, with faculties we have discussed. This kind of interaction, this kind of communication has to keep on, because otherwise you will miss out, and it's an evolving subject. We just started to talk about ensuring safe spaces for people and to get them represented. There is still a lot more to be done in this space, and I think it will take a lot more time, but the whole core of us coming together today here is that the only fact that we need to understand is that we are all human beings beyond anything else. And one thing that we need to understand is that we have to give everybody the same level of respect that we assume or wish to get our own selves, right? The moment you will behave or express or actually give it back to the other person the same way that you want for yourself, the entire game will change, because then you will not be considering somebody as LGBTQIA plus, but rather be as any other human being. And I think this is the world that we are all aiming to reach at. So I think you're all youngsters, and it will be really amazing for you all to navigate your paths, but not just for yourself, but also for the other people who you are meeting on a daily basis, because you never know, somebody queer must be sitting with you now, and they are feeling more of confident because your institution is doing something like this today, right? But again, it will take them again a lot of time to come out or share their narrative, because there is not much that we are doing right there, right? To ensure that safe space is totally onto you, how good you will become as a listener, how good you will become as a safe space for somebody who is out there sitting with you, and how good as an individual you will be there to keep their secrets. Because if you will openly call them out, then it will become a challenge, and coming out is a process. It is not the utmost priority for somebody, because when one person comes out, there is the family, there is society that they are part of, there is again the set of students that they are working with or studying with, and everybody will get impacted in some or other way. So it is very much important for us to understand that it is a process, it has to be done in a process, and we all need to contribute in a way that we enable somebody to be their authentic selves and also create that safe environment around them.
Thank you, Akshay. So, Akshay told so many things, and talking about inclusive campuses, safe spaces, recognition of the identity, and giving respect to a person belonging to whichever gender. I mean, these are the things, obviously, and then creating facilities for, I mean, like gender neutral washrooms and all. So, creating such kind of spaces, such kind of facilities where in person of any gender feels comfortable, and any such person is actually gel with other persons in the society, in the campuses of education institutions, that we all should strive for. That is a responsibility of each one of us. Obviously, in education institutions, it also becomes a responsibility of those who administer the institute, those who manages the institute, but then it's each one of us responsibility. Only then any change is possible to be seen in our campuses. So, I will invite Zayn Khan to further take it forward and tell his story.
Hello everyone, Namaskar. My name is Zayn and my pronouns are he, him and his. So my story is like when I was in school, it was like in depression because of my identity. तो जैसा कि स्कूल्स में होता है ड्रेस कोड वहाँ पर पहले से ही सेट होते हैं, तो इट वाज वेरी डिफ़िकल्ट मी टू वेक अप अर्ली इन द मॉर्निंग और रोज़ वही सलवार सूट पहनकर, तो वो बहुत चैलेंजिंग होता था जाने के लिए. एंड स्कूल लाइफ मेरी बहुत डिफ़िकल्ट रही है, बहुत डिप्रेशन में रही है. वॉज नॉट गुड स्कूल लाइफ. स्कूल लाइफ बहुत डिप्रेशन में रहने के बाद जब कॉलेज वगैरह में आए, तो फर्स्ट ईयर में मेरे को पता लगा दैट आई एम फ्रॉम कम्युनिटी. आई आइडेंटिफाई माई सेल्फ एज अ ट्रांस मैन. एंड उसके बाद मैंने बीच में पढ़ाई छोड़ दी थी. फिर आई गॉट द स्कॉलरशिप फ्रॉम KSF फाउंडेशन, केशव सूरी फाउंडेशन. वहाँ मेरे को पढ़ाई, वहाँ डिप्लोमा मिला मेरे को इन फूड एंड बेवरेजेस में, बेकरी में. और वहाँ का एटमॉस्फेयर बहुत अच्छा था. वहाँ के टीचर्स वगैरह बहुत अच्छे थे. वहाँ जो जैसा एटमॉस्फेयर है वहाँ मैंने अपने घर में, अपने स्कूल लाइफ में कहीं नहीं देखा. वहाँ पर सारी चीज़ें इतनी एक्सेप्टेंस थी. एक्सेप्टेंस इज़ मोर इम्पॉर्टेंट.
I would also like Zayn you to throw some light. So Zayn जब सबसे पहले स्कॉलरशिप के लिए अप्लाई किया था, Zayn at that time was very much confused. Zayn, would you like to talk about how you reached out to us and then how it unfolded this entire journey?
केशव सूरी फाउंडेशन को मैं बहुत टाइम से फॉलो कर रहा था इंस्टाग्राम पे. तो इट वाज लाइक वेरी सेफ स्पेस. आई वाज लाइक कि मैं जब ललित होटल में गया तो वहाँ पर मुझे बहुत अच्छे से समझाया गया. मुझे तब भी अनबॉक्स नहीं किया गया. दैट वाज लाइक कि मैं तब भी कन्फ्यूजन में ही था अपनी आइडेंटिटी को लेके. तो तब मेरे को अनबॉक्स नहीं किया गया। तब जब मैं कॉलेज में था तो वहाँ पर मेरे को पता लगा कि दैट आई आइडेंटिफाई एज अ ट्रांस मैन। ठीक है, वहाँ पर मतलब बहुत डिस्क्रिमिनेशन नहीं था कभी भी।
So the scholarship that he is talking about, so if in a country where we just started to talk about it, there is no scholarship for dedicatedly for LGBTQI community. And like ever since we launched the Keshav Suri Foundation, we were wondering like because education is one of the primary and one of the first area actually where we need to tap into actually make the space more sensitive, because if not of course the other one, then young generations are more easy to make it easy to understand about the community. So we reached out to number of colleges and institutions to bring in some sort of a scholarship, a dedicated one for the LGBTQI folks, and we were always turned down, saying that it will take a long time, we need to sensitize everybody. Then we took that ownership on our own selves. So our management was like, we have a hospitality school, then instead of reaching out to some other schools or colleges, why don't we start with our institution and create a model for everybody else to follow. So in 2019 we started with Aditya Nanda Fellowship, and this fellowship basically had this, like every year we give this scholarship to 5 LGBTQI plus candidates who get an opportunity to do this diploma in food production and bakery and come and join our institution. It again was a lot of time consuming activity for us, because we just did not announce it. We actually took an year to prepare our faculty. Our school also has a sign language interpreter which is full time there, has 3 faculty with person with disabilities. We are also planning to extend this scholarship now to SATEC survivors as well, because that's also one of the areas where we feel now that we are prepared enough. While it comes to people with visual disabilities, there is still a long way for us to go, because there is a lot of sensitivity and lot of upgradation in terms of access that we need to put in place. But I think this scholarship has enabled almost 15 students so far to have got this opportunity to work, and the very sense of being their authentic selves and to come to work as who they are is something which gives us more pride now. And I think this is something which we have to do even at the educational institutions, so that people will not have to worry about being themselves. And I think if things would have been different in terms of uniforms, in terms of accessibility, washroom facilities for Zayn back then, things would have been different now for him. But just because there was that deficiency or lack of resources, or maybe whatever was there was not up to the mark for his standards, and even the very essence of being misgendered, right? मतलब आप जो हैं नहीं, आपको बार बार उसी से बुलाया जाएगा, then you feel like discouraged. And I think this is one of the reasons why we see so many people backing out. अगर आप स्पेशली ट्रांस कम्युनिटी की बात करेंगे तो आप देखेंगे मोस्ट ऑफ द कम्युनिटी, एक बहुत बड़ा तबका जो है वो बहुत ही जल्दी एजुकेशन इंस्टीट्यूशंस छोड़ देता है, क्योंकि एक्सेप्टेंस नहीं है. अगर दे स्टार्ट बिहेविंग डिफरेंटली देन टीचर्स यूज टू मॉक. मतलब in a state wherein if you will go to all boys schools, then teachers will certainly appreciate a boy performing on a female songs, and they will again and again invite them to perform. But if they will come out as a trans person, they will be like no. And this is even in our families, like most of our parents actually dress up like girl, want us to do every sort of enjoyment being of a different gender, but the moment we come out as LGBTQI spectrum, they will be like shout, and the entire narrative changes. So I think there is a lot more which is to be introduced.
But if I can ask about Keshav Suri Foundation, as you said that this institution is there, now how many students are given a scholarship, and how many are studying there, and how it is assessed as to how many are to be educated in a way that they are all are absorbed in the group only? I mean, how all this is done?
So we started in 2019. Every year we induct 5 students from the LGBTQI plus community. These 5 are out and proud LGBTQI candidates who openly talk about them being queer. Other than that, there might be a possibility that other than the scholarship, there are students from the LGBTQI community. But how is it accessible is that we announce this scholarship on our social media portals, and of course on all the news houses we share that press release and goes out. We also work with over 100 plus community based organizations in different parts of this country. So through that we reach out to communities. There is a long tedious process. We interview candidates, we understand the need. If there is somebody who is like really should have this opportunity to learn, we filter out candidates and then we give it to 5 candidates. So far 15 students have graduated, the current batch is ongoing, they are doing their trainings, and we recently on 1st of June last month itself. So we started Pride Month by actually announcing this as scholarship for this year. So this is how people have.
And what kind of experience you have been having wherever the education institutions you would have been going, sensitizing them or running certain programs for the students, what kind of experience you have gathered?
So far I would like to mention here that there is still a lot of work to be done, because most often we are going for sensitization programs, and the moment you enter the institution, the security guard will actually look at the other person because whenever I go, and I am myself an ally, I don't belong to the LGBTQI community, so I always go with this baggage of that I need to represent an entire spectrum which has been misrepresented for a longest period of time. And then I always make sure that I also bring somebody from the community with me, like I have Zayn today with me. So most of the times, whilst it is not in case with Zayn, but trans women, whenever I go along with them, then we actually the guard stops at the gate itself, that why are you here for, despite that we are invited. Right, and it's not just in educational spaces, but even at the corporate houses. Like last month we had gone to almost 8 corporate houses, and 3 of them stopped trans women at the gate itself, that we need to check if you are invited or not. So similar set of experiences is at the colleges and at the schools as well. And of course, even when it comes to school, primarily you have to have parents' consent, because kids there are below 18. So every time you are doing an engagement with respect to sex, gender and sexuality or diversity, you have to actually take consent from parents. So far we had gone to 13 schools in this country. Wherever we had gone, we had already only involved students of class 11th and 12th, and that too with the parents' consent. So out of 100, 200 students in those particular batches, we have got approval of from like 40, 50 parents on average even in those schools.
Have you ever planned some sensitization program for teachers as well?
That's what we start from. So the whole premise of actually taking it forward is that if you have not convinced the faculty itself, because whilst I can for a reason ignore or just don't give a particular sort of behavior to one particular student in my class, but the teachers are the one who I will be getting most affected from if they will only not recognize, right. So we start with teachers only, and even in some of the schools that we have partnered with, like step by step in Noida itself, we have introduced diversity, equity and inclusion as part of their faculty development program itself, so that children, and most importantly even before the students, teachers are only sensitive enough of accepting diversity, because even if somebody from the community goes and complains to a teacher about certain behavior, then most of the teachers just don't listen. And I think this is where we need to put in first thing.
Have you ever studied, because you are giving scholarships and the students are getting training and then they are getting employment in the in your hotel industry, in your hospitality?
They are all working,
So
like
I'm
15 candidates.
my batch is first batch, and I'm the first student who's employee in the hotel.
And like 15 of them who had been from 2019, 2021 batch, they 15 are working in different of our hotels.
Okay. So, what
And he was also the topper of his batch, by the way.
Oh, great. So, what has been your experience in the hotel industry employing these people, and the reactions or the responses coming from the customers? Have you ever tried to do some kind of formal study or feedback to get to know as to what exactly is the response of the customers?
Okay, so let me be very honest on this part. Like just by looking at Zayn, I don't even need to tell anybody that this is particular spectrum of gender, because nobody will even question me, because he looks like a man and it's very easy for anybody to accept him as a man, and then eventually he is a service provider which he is doing at his best. But when it comes to trans people specifically, this becomes a challenge. We, when started, had number of doubts, because we are in a consumer industry, like wherein there is a lot of service and we have to create experiences, because when you are a hotel, people who are coming to a 5-star hotel, they are coming there for an experience, and we certainly have to be very careful about the set of experience that we are giving. So we of course did sensitize our team, our management, everybody, that's all done, but then of course all of this is to create an experience for an external customer too. And interestingly, when guests started coming in fact, I must mention here that we have a nightclub, Kitty Soup, and this was like in India's only nightclub which is actually featured in top 100 clubs of the world. This is known as one of the most safest space for the LGBTQI community, because when we started, the objective was that all the queer people who are not represented in any of the clubs or who had not been permitted anywhere, they all should come here. So there is a specific night that we have created, which is Pure Love Thursday, and every Thursday there is a party and people, and we have discounted price as well for this. Like while the other days it's 3,400 for entry, it's just 500 for the Pure Love Thursday, so that people from all walks of life can access that as well.
No, but this club is only for
No, it's an all. So we are an inclusive hotel chain and not exclusively inclusive hotel chain for LGBTQI community. But yes, I again mentioned that we certainly are a platform for all the less represented communities who are out there, and it is again not just LGBTQI plus community, but also people with disabilities, because I still wonder how many of you know colleges who give like proper diploma course for people with disabilities, especially speech and hearing disability, right? And when you actually ask them, there is hardly one or two, and in a country wherein our people with disabilities population is over a crore, how difficult it is for somebody to get a mainstream job if they are not skilled only. So we also take that ownership on us. We have successfully given opportunity to 200 plus people with disabilities in our hotel, so that they also get to prepare and to also get jobs. In fact, currently on roll there are 79 employees who are working full time. They started as a trainee and then they got full time employment with us, and also they all created that sort of an experience which guest wants, honestly, because when you see that okay, there is a person from the LGBTQI community, especially the trans women, because in our lobby, I again have to mention that we have a piano at our Delhi hotel who is a person with autism spectrum. Just imagine you are walking into a lobby of a 5-star and you see a person with autism spectrum playing piano. So you will feel good about the privilege that you have as a person to come to the hotel, and also your money is where your money is actually going. It is actually to communicate or to actually support the people who are at the margins for various intersections, right? And guests also feel that sort of happiness, because eventually they see that okay, every sort of investment that they are making at the Lalit, it is going for the employment of people with disabilities, going for an experience for LGBTQI spectrum, and all of this matters to a lot. To even sensitize our guests for that matter, it's not of course that we have to just assume that guests will get sensitive enough just by looking at these faces. We have enlightenment tree. So in all of our hotels, in the lobby itself, you will see a beautiful rainbow colored tree which has all the LGBTQI plus terms. All the important terms which are there, they are all there on the tree, and like it's visually appealing, because the moment you see a tree, you tend to go to that place and you see, and you again get to read all these terms, and it's easier for people to learn about the terms. We have an elephant which is of a rainbow color, and that's also a soft toy which is placed in every room. Whenever you book a room with the Lalit, you will find that, and there is a beautiful card with a description that not every word is grey, black or white. There is a beautiful rainbow outside, and that is internalized. You need to feel that. And there are of course, like the room will have rainbow pastries, which again has a beautiful message of inclusivity and diversity. Then of course we have Elfie books. So Elfie books are like cartoon books of, like, one is Elfie and the Peacock, which is about diversity of gender, and second Elfie and the Dance Party, which talks about people with disabilities. I would again like to mention that we are one of the first hotels in this world to have signed United Nations Declaration for LGBTQI plus community at workplace, who had like ticked all the boxes of ensuring that it is a safe space for people and to eliminate discrimination. Also the first country who has given this country the first DJ on wheelchair. So this nightclub which I was talking about is also the first one in this country to have given an opportunity to somebody on wheelchair to be a DJ at the hotel. So I think, and now they are part of the Limca Book of Records as well. So there is a lot more which we are just adding to our journey of diversity.
No, definitely we all know. I have read a lot, so that is why I was asking these questions, so that more and more awareness can be created on these issues, and that's what is exactly one of the major purposes why this kind of session we have organized. Now there are students who have been listening so patiently for so long this discussion. Now I will invite questions from the student, those who want to put up any question.
Hello, sir. My question is that does Keshav Suri Foundation work only in the urban areas, and how can we initiate it in rural areas, where it is not even recognized?
So we are not just working in urban areas. Like I mentioned, that we have partnered with over 100 community-based organizations at different parts of this country, including places like Lucknow and even the suburbs, like all the rural areas. There are number of workshops, and again, like I mentioned, that there are a lot of organizations which are majorly taking forward an agenda of HIV prevention, but we are again tagging along with them to sensitize people about the diversity, because even in that population, majority of population is men having sex with men, right. So we are definitely going there. Of course, when it comes to a large programs, there is not a large intervention, and that of course, because every time there is a lot of budget issues, there are a lot of programs that are still pending, there is a lot more work, especially we are part of a country where only your same sex partnership is recognized, but you cannot legally get married, you do not have hereditary laws. In fact, you cannot take a decision on behalf of your partner as well, if even if it is a medical law, crisis. So there is a lot more to be done, and there is still a lot of resistance. However, I should acknowledge that Supreme Court in its judgment of 2018 very clearly stated that this judgment has to go to all the corners of this country, and we are certainly trying to bridge and those gaps that is existing, and to certainly take it forward to all the rural parts.
One thing I would like to add to what he asked, like you are doing it at your level, Keshav Suri Foundation, and there are so many NGOs who are working. But then, since this judgment came from the Supreme Court, and you as mentioned that the Supreme Court wanted that this should go to everybody, that what exactly is the essence of the judgment should be understood by everybody. Now, what all the government is doing at its level to further create awareness on this issue, or to provide certain monetary benefits or employment or any such thing to the benefit of these communities?
So again, because it's only just same sex partnership which is recognized, so there is not much in store for LGBTQ plus spectrum, but there is certainly a lot which the government has recently done specifically for the trans community, because I think this is the only government which has not just recognized but also had given transgender people a specific council, which is National Council of Transgender Persons in this country, which got recognized in 2020. And I think there is a lot more which is to be done. Now the government, central government itself has given this country 14 sheltered homes at different parts of this country. So I think they are certainly doing and have evolved in their process of inclusion of transgender persons. They recently started Smile program, which is again to support transgender persons with entrepreneurship skills, with their skilling opportunities. So the movement for inclusion of transgender persons has certainly gone to another level, and it is growing, and I am sure most of you must be noticing as well that there is a lot of positive deviant stories out there when it comes to trans community, and there is still a long way to go in that space.
Yeah, that's true. Now, Jyoti is waiting to ask a question.
Good
Yeah.
evening, sir. My name is Jyoti, and my question is how to bring about behavioral change in the masses. What are the things which are missing at the administrative level at educational setup?
Behavior change is a process. It will take really long time, but the easiest way to do it is that change yourself, and just by being a change your own self, you will actually change the world. And I think the more convicted, the more feeling of conviction that you will have, that okay, you will have to be a safe space, you will have to be an ally to the community who is at margin at various intersections. You will end up creating a safe space for somebody who has been less representative or either not represented in the society, and that will change the entire game for the community when it comes to behavior change process. When it comes to what is missing in the administrative process, I think there is a lot which is missing, because if you talk about the intergenerational differences, then there are a lot when it comes to actually convince people at the senior management at the organizations about this idea, because there is lot of resistance, and because this is also not something which is officially being shared and approved by Supreme Court or by the central government, then things are a bit delayed in the process. And of course, like I mentioned, that it was only after Supreme Court decriminalized section 377 that companies went to the rainbow logos. It was only then Supreme Court also told that now I am who I am and take me who I am. So I think there is a lot more which is to be done. There is a lot more sensitivity which is to be brought in the minds of people who are taking decisions, especially like even with the setting up of this National Council of Transgender Persons, the transgender bill. Why is this council came into act like into very recently? The entire transgender bill was actually formed by people who are not even transgender persons. And just imagine somebody taking a decision on your behalf and without even acknowledging or actually taking an opinion from you too. And that is when transgender people were like, Ki, we do not see ourselves, because just imagine you are taking a decision of me. And that is why I said that every time I actually come onto the forums like this, I come with a lot of baggage, because if I will not represent the community who is looking at me just because I have an honest or I have a privilege of representing them, I will not do justice. I should be representing them. They should feel that they are represented when I am speaking. And I think this is something which as an ally we all should do, and also allowing them to claim their spaces.
Good afternoon, sir. Sir, what should be the gender policies and education organization should keep in mind to promote inclusivity?
See, policies again, it's very personal about organizations, because there is no such document which is given, although there are certain scholarships which are introduced by, like Kerala government had announced one. There are certain reservations as well for the transgender community in specific which was brought. In fact, in the transgender bill you will see that there is a lot more which the government had asked education institutions to do when it comes to ensuring safe spaces to the transgender kids. Holistically, while I would again reiterate that there should be gender neutral washrooms to start with, because only then people will feel safe, because I think that's one of the most basic requirement. Adding to that, there should be more such sessions, because I think the more these sessions, these conversations will be there, people from the spectrum will feel more represented and valued. And I think the moment they will see that, okay, this is something which is happening and the college is supporting, they will feel more courageous and they will feel more of their authentic selves, that they are part of an institution which not just recognize them but also value them and is taking an affirmative action to ensure that there is safe space. Adding to that, there should be a lot, like while of course hiring is another, and for somebody queer to even hire, because whilst I know a lot many professors who are openly queer, but I am sure there are a lot many, and to find one especially to do justice with teaching you the required subjects is again a task. But I am really hoping that one day, like next year or anytime soon when I come to DME, you will also have an open and out trans person or somebody from the LGBTQI spectrum teaching in this campus, so that you will feel more confident about being who you are. Additionally, there should be more resource books in your libraries, and I must advise that you should have Sex and the Supreme Court, you should have Queeristan, you should have Equally. All these books will certainly help you understand what all is to be done and how important it is for you to prepare yourself. And let me just add to this, that this is not just about you being acceptive of something, because eventually as an individual none of us need anybody's approval of being ourselves, right? Like you are not living your life on somebody else's terms, you are anyway you, but you will also have to give that space to somebody who you want to actually run on your stereotypical mindset of being heteronormative in nature. Adding to that, it again is not just about talking in these forums and also saying, okay, we understand, we accept, but if you will actually make an effort to be more inclusive in your authentic selves, you will actually get a benefit when you will apply for your jobs, because most of the companies now do the cultural assessments before even hiring you. They actually will analyze like how important and how much contribution will you make in not just doing a particular task, but also enabling that environment to be inclusive of everybody. So I think that from that point of view as well, if you will understand, embrace, empower and create that sort of a mainstream version of the community, I think we all will be in a better place.
Yeah. Any other question? Huh?
Greetings, sir. My name is Sambhavi, and I'm asking all this topic, all this talk about inclusivity, gender equality, it is kind of creating hoax. It is putting them on pedestal, and rather than highlighting issues, we are highlighting person. So, don't you think it's creating disparity, dispersion in society rather than inclusivity?
I would like to take you back to the Supreme Court judgment in 2019 and 9 and 13 again. Supreme Court in its judgment about section 377 mentioned that where are these people, right? So it wasn't just about issues, because the issues were already there. but they certainly wanted more people to come out and share their narrative so that they can actually see if that this is even required or not, right? And when these activists from different identities actually came together and presented it the case again in 2018, it actually came into force, right? So there is, whilst their issues are certainly important, but who, like I mentioned, until and unless you don't recognize only what this is for, like who this is for and what is to be done, what is required, how will you be able to actually bring that change? And if you will not have a face, then how will people believe that there is some community too? So in that way, it is important that there are people who could lead this agenda forward.
Huh.
Hello sir, my name is Pratham Dhawan, and I just want to ask you that many people belonging to this community must have had a phase in their life when they are just coming out as a part of this community. So I just want to ask you that how hard is it for them, or what goes through the mind of a person who is coming out as a part of this community, and what do they face socially during this phase of their life?
So I am not the right person. I think I'll pass it on to Zayn to answer.
इट इज़ वेरी वेरी हार्ड लाइक अभी मैं यहाँ पर आया था तो मुझे शायद किसी ने मिसजेंडर कर दिया था, तो बहुत होता है, ये बहुत ज़्यादा डिफ़िकल्ट होता है. और जब कोई आपको बताता है कि आई एम फ्रॉम LGBT कम्युनिटी, तो व्हाट यू कैन डू इज़ मेक अ सेफ स्पेस. अगर आप उसको कुछ उसके लिए कुछ अच्छा नहीं कर सकते हैं, कुछ उसको एक्सेप्ट नहीं कर सकते हैं, तो उसको प्लीज़ ऐसा भी फील मत कराइए कि वो कुछ एक्स्ट्रा स्टेप ले ले.
बट उस टाइम पे जब चेंजेस आपके माइंड में चल रहे होते हैं कि आप एक्सेप्ट कर रहे होते हो धीरे धीरे कि हाँ मैं एक अलग उसमें हूँ, अलग भी नहीं मतलब अलग, लाइक इसका आई बिलोंग टू दिस कम्युनिटी, तो लाइक आपके माइंड में एज अ पर्सन क्या चल रहा होता है कि क्या आप खुद को एक्सेप्ट वैसे कर पा रहे होते हो, और फिर कई बार लोग होते हैं ना नहीं कर पा रहे होते सोशल.
I would just like to add, I think in this situation what most of the people do is that they conform to the norm. Like what is an actual normal world in front of us, we tend to follow the rules and regulations what are there to just be a part of this so that I don't feel being avoided or I don't feel neglected. And this is what they do in general. However, this is why I again mentioned that it is important for you to be convinced with the idea that you need to be acceptive, you need to create that safe space. You should not be calling out people. Even in group, most of the time what happens is that you have a group of 10 people and you're mocking about somebody's walk, somebody's way of talking, somebody's behavior, somebody's expression, and just that conversation itself is discriminatory enough for somebody to feel that this is not a safe space. So I think that all should be avoided to ensure that they feel recognized and valued.
All you have to do is make a safe space.
That discriminatory mindset has to be tackled. In fact, we, I mean, not only in the case of the people from LGBT community, but otherwise also our social settings are such wherein we feel very good mocking others. For whatever reasons we mock others, but लोगों का मजाक बनाने में हम सबको बड़ा सुख मिलता है. तो वो जो mindset है, उस mindset से थोड़ा बाहर आने की ज़रूरत है मुझे लगता है. और हाँ.
Sir, a couple of weeks ago, we celebrated Pride Month in our college, so in which we launched a queer collective. So, what kind of activities we should conduct to make it more interesting?
To make it more interesting, I think what you can do is that you should do more of human stories, because I think, and you should actually have more of representatives from the community itself. But don't leave it just for queer people, make it as inclusive space wherein you will have allies as well, so that most of your students feel that they have a role to play in that group. You should drive your allyship campaigns, you should involve more of your faculty to be a part of these programs. You should do more of sessions. I think now that you have launched this collective, you should also do some sort of regular activities, like just by posting or having an Instagram page and posting about these important terms will actually bring a significant difference in so many of lives, when you will sensitize so many people. Then you can take quotes from people from the community, you can take quotes from international celebrities as well who are openly being gay or being queer person. So I think those sort of narratives, those sort of conversations, an activity as simple as that, like all the songs which have been like predominantly just on masculine behavior or on heteronormative way, just try them in a same sex partnerships, right, and just enact them and put them on the social media, and this is one of the ways of interacting or making it more easy for people to relate with the entire spectrum.
So moving ahead, yeah.
Hi
Sajal.
sir, I'm Sajal. I have come across two individuals. They are into the transformation process, and this process is very difficult. So how do you tackle it via your organization, and how did they just come up with this?
About the transformation process?
Yeah, how do you help
So like
them?
I mentioned that before even bringing people on board, there is a significant time that the organization had given to sensitize and prepare the organization to be acceptive and welcoming for the people. In fact, in our journey, and we also had one person, like before even we started these sensitization programs, that somebody who was working with us as Hamza, they out of these sessions mentioned that they want to transition, and that was then we were not having policies even. And after that, like this was one of the sort of a learning for us as well. Now that the person had requested, we have to have this in place, and we created that as a case study to our insurance givers, that okay, this is a person, this is what is requested. And similarly, when you have human stories, and I think when a lot of effort is put out on sensitizing and ensuring that sort of a safety and inclusivity at the workspace, then everybody is understandable about what the community will bring into the table, how will this journey be like. Especially in trans persons, they have to be on hormones, and with these hormonal changes there is a lot of behavioral change, right? So in those of the phases, we do workshops with the respective departments as well on how to tackle all those behavior changes, how it is to be ensured that they feel that they are part of the system. In fact, when somebody undergoes transition, there is a 3-month paid leave policy as well at the organization, which is not listed anywhere in terms of the policies that the government gives you, but we have documented that for our policy, that we at the Lalit Suri Hospitality Group have this in place, that after your transition surgery, you also need rest, and just like we give in paternity or maternity leaves, it is important for us to also recognize somebody who is transitioning. So there is a policy of 3 months paid leaves for even them.
Greetings everyone, myself Ishika Shaw, first year BHMC student. So my question to you is, we often hear these terms, non-binary, non-conforming. Is there any difference between these two terms, non-binary and gender not conforming?
Yes, so non-binary people are basically those who don't who are maybe born as male or female, but they express themselves as both male and female. Like you must have seen a lot many men who put nail paints, who like big long hairs, who like makeup, etc., but they at the same time also embrace their masculinity. So when that sort of a person is there who embrace both their masculinity and femininity, they are non-binary people. Gender non-conforming is for people who don't want to tick a particular box. Like when it comes to LGBTQIA plus spectrum, then there are cases when people belong to the lesbian segment, but they are like not very much sure. They might feel like they might be bisexual, or they might be trans men only. So all of these confusions when are there, when you are not very much clear, and when you are not wanting to tick a particular box out there, then you put yourself into a non-conforming box, and this gender non-conforming box is actually what we call queer people. So when people are not accepted or required to put themselves in a particular box to identify themselves as.
Hello sir, myself Kushasta, first year BHMC student, and my question is, we talk about becoming an ally to the community. So as youngsters, how can we become ally to the community and being sensitive?
How to become an ally is very personal, because of course like I mentioned that you need to understand the community, you have to be that person who wants to involve people, who wants to be a part, and who wants to bring in that difference. And it is not certainly just a difference in their lives, because आप उनको accept करोगे तो उनकी दुनिया नहीं बदल जाएगी, and they are just not waiting for your validation to be their authentic selves, but it will certainly give you a lot of benefit, because you will have a lot of variety in terms of your thought process. You will get to learn about people of different backgrounds, you will learn about person who is living a sort of life which is already complicated enough, you will learn about people who are at verge of being at most vulnerable stages in their lives. So all of this will certainly add to your thing as well. How you can become an ally is that the least you do is like this badge, all of us put that, and it is as simple as that. Once I have some symbol with me which actually is about the LGBTQI community, people feel that okay, this person actually knows, right? So this gives them confidence. Okay, अगर किसी ने पहना है तो of course कुछ तो समझ के ही पहना होगा, otherwise तो इसका ज़रूरत नहीं है ना, because even without this is looking good, right? So this is something that you will bring a difference with. The kind of textbooks you recommend each other, you read, will also impact somebody, because like just by putting a rainbow element at your desk at workspaces, or by talking about a book or a movie in this institution about queer people, I think a lot of difference it will eventually begin with, because you will certainly recognize people, you understand them. As your allyship, what you can also do is that irrespective of making somebody feel uncomfortable or bringing somebody to the entire forum out, you should just initiate conversations and initiate these conversations on the fact that everybody should feel represented, right? And don't talk about you being queer, talk about just queer. Don't talk about you being gay, talk about what gays men experience, what lesbian women experience, because the moment again, like she was asking how important it is to again personalize it to some stories only, that will not bring in the difference. That will certainly give you one positive event story, but you are talking about the allyship for the entire community. When you are wanting to be an ally, you don't want to be an ally to just Zayn. There are other people as well who you have to include, and I in none of my imagination can only be inclusive of trans persons and not of gay. I cannot be inclusive of just gay people and not be of trans, because there are still lot many people, even within the community there is a lot of phobia against each other, but I think as a collective, and when we are talking about allyship, to minimize those gaps is what our major responsibility is.
Yeah, so that is how we moved towards the end of this program. It was really enlightening, because so many issues get understandable to the students and to us all. So to take the things forward, I call upon Christine to take it forward. Yeah.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much for such an insightful session. Now I invite Professor Dr. Sushmita Bala, Head DME Media School and Chief Associate Convener, ICAN5, to give the concluding remarks.
Thank you, Christina. Thanks, Akshay and Zayn. यहाँ हम बात कर रहे हैं respect to all, not sympathy. Understanding with all person. Belongingness with all, yes. This is very important, but not recognize LGBTQ person by face, creative gap. Creating facility for society so that anyone can feel comfortable, feel safe in this environment. Self-identity, self-respect, self-recognition is important. यहाँ ये बहुत ज़रूरी है कि लोग अपने को स्वीकार करें. हम लगातार बात कर रहे हैं एक्सेप्टेंस की, क्योंकि अपने को एक्सेप्ट नहीं कर पाते हैं, इसलिए फैमिली एंड सोसाइटी में भी प्रॉब्लम आती है, क्योंकि जब तक हम समझते हैं बहुत देर हो जाती है. और यही जो एग्ज़ाम्पल जैन ने दिया कि मुझे समझने में टाइम लगा. स्कूल लेवल पे जो प्रॉब्लम उस दिन भी हम लोगों ने बात की थी कि स्कूल में अगर कोई नहीं समझ रहा वो नेक्स्ट स्टेप है, लेकिन बचपन से अगर पेरेंट्स नहीं समझ पा रहे हैं या बच्चा अपने को नहीं समझ पा रहा है कि एक्चुअली मैं हूँ क्या, तो वहाँ पे प्रॉब्लम आ जाती है. तो लेकिन हाँ, ऑब्वियस है कि एकदम छोटा बच्चा अपने आप को नहीं समझ सकता कि मैं क्या हूँ, क्योंकि मेल फीमेल या कोई और सेक्स वो थोड़ा बड़ा होगा तभी उसे समझ में आएगा. तो ये बहुत इम्पॉर्टेंट है कि हम फैमिली से, परिवार से और परिवार वालों को थोड़ा सा स्ट्रॉन्ग होने की ज़रूरत है. स्ट्रॉन्ग इन द सेंस कि आप फाइट करने की बात नहीं है. मैं एक बार कहने वाली थी कि फ़ाइट करना चाहिए. फाइट इज़ नॉट राइट वर्ड. फैमिली अगर स्ट्रॉन्ग होगी तो वो अपने बच्चे को, अपने वार्ड को उतना स्ट्रांगली, सेफली आगे बढ़ा सकती है. और सोसाइटी, उसमें फिर सोसाइटी बिल्कुल आड़े नहीं आएगी. अगर हमको ही लगने लगता है कि नहीं मेरा बच्चा ऐसा है, हम क्या करें, हम क्या कर सकते हैं उनके एजुकेशन को लेके या किसी भी चीज़ को लेके। तो उसके लिए ग्रेजुअली सोसाइटी में चेंज की ज़रूरत है, परसेप्शन चेंज की बात हम लोग कर रहे हैं। परसेप्शन चेंज तभी होगा जब हम फैमिली से ये सारी चीज़ें स्ट्रांगली आगे ला पाएंगे। तो ये और ख़ास तौर से मैं अक्षय फाउंडेशन जो आपका है उसके लिए बहुत बहुत बधाई कर रही हूँ। आप बहुत अच्छा काम कर रहे हो एक्चुअली। तो उसके लिए सभी लोगों को और आगे आना चाहिए, जितने लोग जुड़ सकते हैं। जैसे अभी क्लासेस की एजुकेशन की बात हुई कि टीचर्स को इन्वॉल्व करना, तो मेरे ख्याल से हम लोग भी इसमें अगर कुछ हमारा पार्टिसिपेशन हो सकता है तो बिल्कुल हम इसमें करेंगे। जहाँ भी हमारी ज़रूरत है हम आगे आएंगे। और सिंपैथी बिल्कुल नहीं है इसमें, सिंपैथी की बिल्कुल बात नहीं है और किसी को सोचना भी नहीं चाहिए। कोई अगर मौकरी करता है तो ये उसका हेडेक है, अपना हेडेक नहीं है। तो ये सारी चीज़ें हैं, बहुत इम्पॉर्टेंट हैं, समझना, सोचना और आगे बढ़ना। सो थैंक यू अक्षय एंड जैन फॉर दिस सेशन। थैंक यू, थैंक्स टू ऑल ऑफ यू।
Thank you, ma'am. With this, we come to the conclusion of plenary session 1. My foremost and heartfelt thanks to the session expert for sharing their valuable insight about the theme embracing diversity and inclusion in educational campuses. Sincere thanks to management of DME, Mr. Aman Sani, Vice Chairman, Justice Bhavar Singh, Director General, Professor Dr. Ravikant Swami, Director, for their support in every endeavours being taken by DME Media School. Heartfelt thanks to Dean Media School, Professor Dr. Amrish Saxena, Head Media School, Professor Dr. Sushmita Bala, for their motivation in planning and executing the flagship event of Media School. Thanks to Dr. Manaswi Maheshwari, Associate Professor and Associate Convener of ICAN5, for all-over coordination for the International Media Conference. Thanks to Sumantra Sati Das and Vishal Sahai, Assistant Professors, and Yogesh Sharma, Faculty at Media School, for digital and production support for ICAN5. Thanks to Dr. Manmeet Kaur, Associate Professor and Academic Coordinator, and Pramod Kumar Pandey, Assistant Professor, for their efforts in supporting ICAN5. Thanks to Shruti VS, Assistant Professor, Media School, she has supported ICAN5 as the convener for Cultural Team and Student Coordination. Mohammad Kamil and Sukriti Arora, Assistant Professors, for newsletters, press briefings, and media coordination support. Dr. Ritika Saxena, Assistant Professor, for designing and creative support. Saima Parvez and Dr. Sumedha for their support with social media management. I also thank Pawan Saxena, Anmol Mehta, Tulika Arora, CM Anand, Abhishek Yadav, Jagan for administrative and logistic support. Student convener Priya Yadav for her consistent support in ICAN5. Special thanks to our conference partners, knowledge partners, international partners, and media partners. Next, we have a panel discussion at 7:30 p.m. on journalism and media education in the United States. Perspective from international graduate students, moderated by Dr. Jatin Srivastav, Associate Professor and Director, Institute for International Journalism, EW Scripps, School of Journalism, Ohio University, USA. Now, I would request Professor Dr. Amrish Saxena and Dr. Sushmita Bala to kindly felicitate the guest. Thank you everyone. Have a great day ahead. I request everyone to stay back for a group photograph.